Olá a todos e a todas, meu nome é Paulo Gustavo, eu sou professor do Programa de Pós-Graduação em Estudos de Fronteira na Universidade Federal do Amapá, o PPGF. Tivemos a oportunidade de falar hoje com a professora Jacqueline Laguardia, uma professora de Cuba, que dá aula na Universidade of West Indies, a maior universidade do Caribe. A professora, além de passar um pouco dos dados sobre Cuba, fala um pouco da estrutura de saúde de Cuba, né, e como isso se relaciona no combate à pandemia, e também da situação, né, econômica de Cuba e a escassez de alguns recursos materiais em que tem afetado, que já pré-pandemia era forte, mas que fica mais acentuado com a pandemia.
So, hi everyone. Now we are with Jacqueline Laguardia. No? She's from Cuba, from the Cátedra de los Estudios del Caribe, Norman Girvan, and she's a lecturer at in the Institute of International Relations in UB, the University of West Indies. No? Thank you, Laguardia, for your time. How is the situation in Cuba? Even though you live in Trinidad and Tobago, you are very connected to Cuba. So how is the situation up there?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I will try to do something here with the chat so I can show you what are the numbers in Cuba. Let me see if I can share the screen. Otherwise, I will just let you know. Let's see here. Okay, well, no, I cannot share the screen. It doesn't matter. What we can have in Cuba is we have around 1,700 cases. It might sound very, very high. They are 1,766, actually, 1,766. It might sound very high, but let us remember that Cuba has a population of 11.3 million. So even if we are in the Caribbean, it is a country with a quite large population. So there has been, as you can see, there has been a high number of people that are reported compared to other islands. But also let us take into account the large amount of population we are talking about. In terms of deceased, we have about 80 people that unfortunately have died. When you look at the numbers, you can see that they are mostly people with a certain age, with certain type of preconditions. So in that regard, we are behaving pretty much as the rest of the world, where there is this risk population that is about people that are the elderly and they have certain type of preconditions. So in that sense, we are pretty much like the region and the rest of the world. What you can see in Cuba is that I believe the main strength is the type of medical infrastructure in terms of how the approach of medicine has been traditional in Cuba. And it has to do with prevention. So very early, like the rest of most of the Caribbean, the country decided to close the borders. The country decided to close the schools. The country decided to starting to shut down the economy. That is very, very costly for Caribbean economies, as we all know. But this is the best way to go in this type of situation. And besides that, since a very early stage, the country had a system that was to go into the neighborhoods and ask family by family if they have any type of symptoms. Because with this type of disease, the best approach is to prevent before people actually start to manifest and people start to get really sick.
This kind of public policy, like getting closer to people in their house, it's part of the health system in Cuba, or it's doing just right now?
No, it is connected to the health system because since I remember that since the 80s in Cuba, we started a program that is called the doctor and the nurse of the family. That means that in pretty much every 2 or 3 blocks, you have a doctor that lived there. And so this is kind of the family, the neighborhood doctor that is connected to the neighborhood. So this doctor has a very well-known and has the track of the medical history of people in the community. So linked to that system, you can have now medicine students that are the ones who will be assigned to polyclinics, that will be assigned to this medical and nurse in the neighborhood, and they will help to go house by house and family by family, trying to track if you had fever, if you had a cough, if you had any type of symptom, and if there is some type of suspicious, the first approach is to, you know, to know that in this house, there might be some case. So keep on the tracking and maybe assign you to have this kind of rapid test. So, I mean, the approach will be different, but it was since a very early stage, a very down to the ground community-based approach as the best case to avoid people rushing into the hospitals when they are very sick, and then you might not have the resources to deal with a person that is actually very, very sick. And in the case of Cuba, this type of approach is very important because of the resource scarcity. So you need to be very aware that you have a major scarcity of material resources. So you need to avoid people to rush into the hospitals and be in a position that you cannot give the real medical care that everybody needs. So in the case of a country with very limited material resources, but at the same time with the strength of having this medical tradition, I believe that was the best way to go.
I see. And how is the isolation in Cuba? Is it like vertical, or how does that work?
Well, that is the main problem, and let me explain you why. There has been a quarantine declared as pretty much every country in the region that has to do with schools shutting down, the public offices just shut down, with the exception of the essential ones. A lot of economic activity is shut down, again, with the exception of the vital ones. I mean, there is, of course, the hospitals are working, you have certain type of medical activities working, but the main problem in Cuba, and this is something related with a condition, a situation before the pandemic, has to do with the material scarcity. And this material scarcity has become very stressing, especially with the Trump administration, and also linked to the country economic condition. It is a very bad combination of an external pressure combined with internal insufficiencies. So this is a combo that will give you a lot of economic distress. And economic distress means that people is usually every day on the street looking for food, looking for different resources they need for everyday life. In Cuba, we don't have this type of economy that allow you to go to a computer and ask for a product to be delivered at your home. You have to be out there looking for food and looking for supplies. And that, even if you have a quarantine, you will have large files of people, you will have people out there, and that is the main risk. Because even if you want to avoid people not to be on the street, people need to go to the street to get what they need on everyday basis. And there's a lot of people that might not need to go to the street, but since everybody is on the street, they will go to the street as well. So that is very difficult to contain. And this is what the authorities, the medical authorities, are calling for people to be conscious, for people to try to go and get the food they need, but go back to home immediately. But this is the main problem in the Cuban case right now, how to make this self-isolation to work.
Okay, I see. And Jacqueline, how do you see the future post-pandemic? Some people are talking about the changing of the relationship between society and the state, or even the relationship between the state. How do you see that?
Well, the future, as Professor Byron said, is cloudy. So I agree with that. I also would like to see some light going through these many clouds. I'm thinking about an example in the case of Cuba. Interesting enough, all this pandemic situation has made people to be more aware of the importance of connecting by internet. Even though internet infrastructure in Cuba is very scarce, it is still quite expensive, but there is a connection. People use the social network more. And with this type of using of social network, you can see a different type of dialogue between communities and civil society and government. For instance, shutting the schools in Cuba was something that was made, but also because there was a major claim for the population that we want the schools to be closed immediately. It is okay if we are not in a bad position now, but we prefer to do that now than do it within a week. That might be the government plan. So you can see this new type of interaction that is more immediate that I believe could be a positive thing, for instance. But nevertheless, in the case of Cuba, tourism is going to be very bad. The food scarcity might be a problem as well. And so we can expect for difficult times, unfortunately.
Well, I hope you stay safe in Trinidad and well, everyone in Caribbean. And thank you very much for your time. And I hope we can have another conversation in a better time.
Yes, and the same for you. Keep safe, please.
Thank you very much.
Bye.